What if I told you austerity was designed to lower your IQ? I'm Rachel. I'm a public and social policy consultant, and I want what I know to be what you know. And today we're learning about the scarcity mindset, what it does to us personally and nationally, and how the government can use it to shape welfare, politics, public services, the lot. Scarcity and a scarcity mindset is when your resources are so limited, it starts to have an impact on your ability to make decisions, and your brain has to prioritize survival over anything else. So it's when like our mental bandwidth becomes consumed by just a few things. So money, shelter, food, childcare, work, all of these immediate needs that we need to satisfy when money in this case is scarce, that produces a scarcity mindset. We can only really think about the now. A scarcity mindset is a cognitive response to stress. And no one chooses a scarcity mindset. This is something that happens to us. When it comes to people in poverty, we assume that they make bad decisions because they're bad people and that they're not clever enough to make good decisions. But the scarcity mindset is playing an enormous role in somebody's ability to make good decisions. A really good example, and it's going to sound crazy, but like takeaways instead of cooking. And whilst this video is not about food, I do think it's a good example because it kind of shatters that middle class judgment that we have when we look at people in poverty and we look at their food choices as though they can't comprehend the illogicality of why you would choose a takeaway over some wholesome bean and carrot stew that costs like 80 pence but 5 hours to make. These scarcity mindset is preventing people from making choices and good decisions because they're trapped in the now. So quite often takeaways and crappy food, they're not bad decisions, they're scarcity decisions. It's fast, it removes one problem from your mind, and when your brain is overloaded, that's rational, that's what you need. And under acute financial stress, many studies have shown that your IQ drops between something like 10 and 15 points. Like not permanently, but just enough to impair immediate decision making. Enough to make bad choices feel rational and enough to make simple thinking feel comfortable. So what's this got to do with austerity? Well, we talk about scarcity mindset as a personal issue. One person, one brain. We've got a scarcity mindset. It's that person's mindset. But what if we had a national scarcity mindset? And this is not a revolutionary idea by any stretch, but I do think that we have a manufactured scarcity mindset in the UK, and that pushing us as a country into this national scarcity mindset is a deliberate ploy. So the UK is a wealthy nation, and yet scarcity rhetoric and austerity logic is kind of all we hear from most of our politicians. The budget is coming up, and all we're hearing is we can't afford this, we need to make tough decisions, there's not enough money to go around. Politicians say, like, oh, the Greens have got a magic money tree, and where are you getting all of this magic money from? This is scarcity rhetoric. Hard choices. We must tighten our belt. We must live responsibly. We must stay within our means. We must budget responsibly. We must make these tough decisions, tough choices. This is all scarcity mindset. Scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. So austerity wasn't just about budget cuts. It was about a mental mind shift towards scarcity. It trained us as a public to expect less, demand less, to kind of justify the suffering that austerity has brought. It's fine if we think we're doing it based on sensible decisions, but actually we're pushing us into this scarcity logic as a nation to justify some of the cruelest policies that we have. Meanwhile, we have massive wealth accumulation at the top and billions lost to both tax avoidance, tax evasion, and stupid tax policies that we have, where we're not taxing the wealthy, but still stuck in this rhetoric of making very tough decisions for people on the lowest incomes. Meanwhile, we're all going around thinking things like the two-child limit is fair because getting children out of poverty is an unaffordable luxury. That's the scarcity mindset. So when you push millions of people into financial scarcity, you push millions of people into a scarcity mindset. And that makes us easier to sway with simple messages, false choices, binary logics, in, out, sound familiar? It's not that austerity was designed to literally lower your IQ, because the scarcity mindset doesn't do that in general. It does it in the immediacy of decision making. But austerity created the exact conditions that weaken our logic, that push us into bad decision making. So when you train a nation and a whole population to think in terms of scarcity, we become primed for these zero-sum narratives, and we become susceptible and very easily swayed by simple messaging like take back control. Scarcity makes us cognitively vulnerable, and as with everything, our policymakers know this. And this narrowed thinking helps political movements that rely on emotional responses rather than judgment. We're stretched to the limits. We don't have the cognitive bandwidth to think more critically beyond borders, take back control, not enough housing, scarcity, no money, live within our means, make tough decisions, be the grown-ups in the room. It's fucking nonsense. Now, we can't think our way out of scarcity. And yes, with all of these biases and logical fallacies and things that I talk about on this channel, sometimes just being aware of it helps. And being aware of the scarcity mindset does help, but it doesn't. I mean, on an individual level it might, but in general it doesn't. The only real way out of scarcity is abundance. And by abundance, I don't mean magic money trees. I mean things like predictable income, stable housing, public services that work. The bar is pretty low when it comes to stability. But if we do provide stability, then we get our cognitive bandwidth back and we get out of this scarcity mindset. The more you know, we need better policy.